Right, hello there everybody, and welcome to the last Sherlock Holmes story, Chapter 5, Part 2. Here we go. Curriculum Mortis. Hors d'oeuvre, Martha Tabram. A saucy little stabbing in the George Yard buildings. Don't go away, it gets better. 7th of August, 88. 1. Mary Ann Nichols, the first work to show the power of the master's hand slashing the master's hand slashing green through her blooming throat. Now Jack's work is done. The pub's lost its pun. August the 31st. Anne Chapman, she told me, shivery, highly polished performance polished her off. Ha ha, ha ha. Sliced her very nicely from her spot to her dugs. 8th September 1888. Rest in peace. Ha ha, ha ha. A double threat. Elizabeth Stride just had the big bitch pinned from when the Philistine Jew has to come by and ruin all the beauty of it. But Catherine Eddowes soaring free above the foul, unfettered finding, killing, and utterly gutting the pig bag. Mother scum. Rest in peace, rest in peace, rest in peace. And that's the long and short of it. Say, old boss, did you ever think it's Mitry bin the Masons? The 13th September, in this fear of our boards, 1888. 5. Mary Jane Kelly. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. 9th of November, Lady Mary's Day. Op Post. Francis Coles, old Mother Coles, was the first of the souls to be chived since he rose from the dead. Her throat cut so fine, you can tickle her spine, and play skittleball with her head. 13th February 1891. Unlucky for some. At the bottom of the chest I had removed all the papers I found. At the bottom of the chest, when I had removed all the papers, I found a small wooden box and 3 glass vessels. The box contained a quantity of cheap jewellery, several locks of hair, a scrap of cloth, part of a broken mirror, a candle stub, 2 farthings, some matches, and a human tooth. The glass vessels were of the kind used in hospitals to retain organs for examination. They were filled with a colourless fluid and wax sealed. The first 2 I looked at held various abominable organs. Amongst the contents I recognised part of a liver, a section of duodenum, a kidney, and a short length of urethra. The last jar. I broke off here, hoping I might admit this final obscene detail, but I'm persuaded that without it my subsequent behaviour might not be fully understood. The last jar contained portions of a uterus, together with a fetus of some 12 or 14 weeks' growth. A paper label in basic 6 lines of writing was pasted to the glass. Once in Royal Victoria City stood a lowly courtyard shed, where a mother took a stranger. He took her, and now she's dead. Kelly was that mother wild. In this jar, her little child. It would be some undue exaggeration to say that those 6 lines sealed Holmes' fate. I had asked for some proof so gross and blatant that our friendship would be dissolved as if in acid. Leave me free to destroy a stranger and a murderer. Hence, here was my proof, and its effect was everything I had asked for, and more. Strictly speaking, I could have washed my hands of this business there and then. I had only to call Lestrade and show him what I had found, and then to take him to my house and give Holmes over into his keeping. But it was too late for such half measures. If I discovered just the papers and the jars without the jeering verse, I might have been content to play Judas. But I was personally involved now. The abomination Holmes had become threatened everything I held dear, and by which I had lived my life. The last thing I wished was to see such filth blemish for ever the image of a man whom, besides myself, had come to regard as among the best and the wisest England had produced. It would have been a terrible and damaging blow to the moral fibre of the entire nation if Sherlock Holmes had been identified in open court as the author of those lines. My legal duty was to give way before a sense of obligation to my country. Had and to the great ideal of enlightened rationalism, which Holmes himself personified. If the events of the next 10 days revealed a Watson whose existence no one, least of all myself, had previously suspected, the cause may be traced directly to that scrap of dodgery. I let myself out of the home, which Holmes had pointed out to me long before as Moriarty's lair. Shortly before 5 o'clock, I felt strangely calm and deliberate, but also elated. The morning air seemed to have been wafted straight from some mountain peak. I inhaled it gratefully. As the cab jingled me home through the awakening city, how singular, I thought, the dull, stolid, uninspiring John Watson should have been selected as the instrument of fate. My first task on returning home was to replace Holmes' keys. He was still sleeping, and I took the opportunity to search his clothes for weapons and drugs. I found neither. His only possession besides the keychain was a little money. His cigarettes, a ham sandwich wrapped in a paper, and a small horn snuff box. Having satisfied myself on this point, I relocked the bedroom door and made my way downstairs, when I wrote 2 letters. The first was a short personal note to my wife, containing as much of the truth as I thought she could know. The other was detailed communication addressed to Inspector Lestrade. Although I was determined to settle the account with Holmes myself, I was not foolhardy enough to assume I would necessarily be successful. My own life I was prepared to hazard, but I could not permit Holmes to go free if I failed. I therefore told Lestrade what had happened and what I had found, and what I was attempting, and hinted so broadly that if I were to die as a result of an accident in the next few weeks, the circumstances might well bear looking into. This letter I sealed into an envelope addressed to my bank manager, instructing him to forward my contents on the 8th of May. When the maid appeared to lay the fire, I gave her the letter with instructions to put it in the post that morning, without fail. I then sent her off to pack some necessities in a small case. By now my sleeplessness was beginning to take its toll. And as I considered the prospect before me, it became clear that this was going to be a continuing problem. The scene Holmes had painted for me was the night before, of 2 exhausted men, each willing himself to stay alert longer than the other now, took on more immediate significance. Obviously, I could not leave Holmes unwatched for even a few minutes. There was quite literally no telling what he might do, and even if it were nothing more than a decampment in flight from imaginary enemies, it would mean the end of all my hopes for a decent solution to this horrible, indecent business. Evidently, if I was to retain the advantage, I had to have some artificial support denied to Holmes. I made sure that he was without needles or bottles, but what was I to do? I had nothing suitable to hand, and by the time the chemist's shops opened, Holmes would be up and about. Then suddenly remembered the gift which Holmes had made to me of the hypodermic needles and his cocaine solution. Cocaine was by no means ideal for my purpose. By its action, it's stimulating to the central nervous system, and it used judiciously. I had no doubt it would fit the bill. I located the small brown bottle in one of the drawers on my desk, transferred the contents to a larger container marked to the Linticus, and diluted them considerably. I then injected a small amount into my arm. The effect was immediate and remarkable. I felt my head clear, my spirits lifted, my limbs surged with energy. Yes, it would do. I set the bottle and the case of needles on one side and went upstairs to see how my guest was faring. As I opened the door, I noticed at once the bed was now empty. In the same instant, Holmes leapt out from behind the door and swung at my head with a fire iron. Over the hypersensitive reactions which are a product of the drug saved my life. I sensed the attack just in time, and the weapon caught me only a glancing blow. This was still enough to stun me momentarily. I came to a lying on the floor, with Holmes bent over me. His arms was around me, and his face filled with anxiety. "You're not hurt, Watson?" he cried. "For God's sake, say you're not hurt." I roused groggily to my feet. "It's nothing. Ah, my friend, you see how cunning he... Ah, the fiend. You see how cunning he is. He makes me almost kill my only friend. He knew that after seeing his man in the garden, I would assume that he had done away with you and was coming to finish me off. In the garden? His man? He plucked me by the sleeve. He plucked me by the sleeve and led me over to the window. No, stand back, like so, at the side. Do you see him? William, he comes every Saturday to the garden. Ha! Clearly Moriarty foresaw the utility of having an agent with access to your household. Your domestics may also have been suborned. I should never have stayed here, Watson. It was madness. We have been very fortunate thus far. But the professor may strike at any moment. We must leave at once. Every second is precious. My luggage is packed. Holmes gave out an exclamation of disgust. No luggage, man. You might as well tell him which station you are headed for, and save him any further trouble in the matter. We will go as we are and encourage the manufacturers of the countries through which we travel. But first we must think of the Bowstragan to get out of this house alive. Whilst Holmes paced the floor, wrestling with this imaginary problem, I was trying to answer the rather more vital question of how to take along the cocaine and syringe unobserved, since we had to travel without luggage. The thought of that drug gave me an idea. I say, Holmes, how would it be if I got myself up as if I were paying a visit to a patient? Morning dress, black bag. Surely he would not suspect that. Holmes gave me an approving glance. Excellent, Watson. I see that you are informed today. I had the same idea 2 minutes ago. What was giving me pause was the question of how my own exit might be managed. Now I have that too. He would say no more, but bade me to go and change. When the maid called me, I was to go straight down and get into the waiting cab. Evidently, Holmes was indulging himself in that strain of arch mystification I'd come to know so well. It seemed best to humour him, so I went to my room, donned my medical professional attire. I had scarcely finished packing my medical bag. It was rather weighty than usual, what with the cocaine and the case of needles of pure gold and a purse of gold coins, my service revolver. When the maid knocked to tell me that my cab was at the door, I hastened downstairs. A hansom was at the door, drawn at the curb. I climbed without a word, and the driver promptly whipped up his horse. We drove smartly through the residential streets of the district and turned out into Cromwell Road. Our pace here was such that we were soon overtaking all other traffic. Passing the great facade of the new museum, we drew level with unoccupied four-wheeler, and I heard my cabby hail his opposite number. You free, mate? He cried. There's a growler wanted in Alfred Place West, drawn by the railway station. I've just come from there. The other waved acknowledgement and turned off to the right. At the next corner, we followed suit. We sped furiously down the street, rounded the corner on the one wheel, raced to the end, and drew in at the Metropolitan Station. My driver leapt down from his perch and secured his reins to a lamp standard. Come, Watson, there's not a moment to lose, cried Sherlock Holmes. A few words with the maid had in fact prepared me for this revelation, but any want of warmth in my response went unnoticed as Holmes led me at a run to the station. Instead of turning down the steps leading to the trains, however, he continued at full stride the length of the short arcade, dashing out the other side. He crossed the road and climbed into the four-wheeler that was drawing up. I scrambled in after him. Holmes repeated loudly on the roof, and in another moment we were mobile again. Might I trouble you for a cigar, Doctor? Asked Holmes with a twinkle. All this fresh air calls for a chaser. Now I had to hear how he had told Jane to run to the High Street cab rank and summon the tallest, thinnest driver to my address, where he was induced by means of a sum of money to exchange clothes with Holmes and to part with his cab for half an hour, at the end of which time he was to take a train to South Kensington Station and retrieve it. Moriarty would of course assume on seeing us enter the station that we had resorted to the railway, into whose nether depths he would descend whilst he sped away unpursued, etc., etc. Dutifully I gasped and nodded and exclaimed, what did it matter? Let Holmes assume himself what he might elude morality, but he could not escape me. There were still 2 hours to wait before the departure of the boat train. We occupied the time with a long drive across the river to Peckham, which we breakfasted amply in an establishment frequently almost exclusively by omnibus drivers. Shortly before 11 o'clock, he drew up in the concourse of Victoria Station. I remained in the cab while Holmes purchased the tickets. At his signal, I joined him, and we were both rushed headlong through the miling throng and clambered aboard the already moving train. Needless to say, the behaviour, together with the eccentricity of our apparel, attracted some little attention, but it was not this which caused Holmes to utter an oath as he gazed back at the receding platform. Damn, it's Moriarty. I rushed to see, but another train pulling out hid the station from view. Holmes smote the partition of our compartment in frustration and anger. The cunning devil! He must have gambled that we were heading for the continent. We gave him the slip when we gave him the slip. He simply made for Victoria and sat down to wait. It is what I myself would have done in the circumstances. It is well we took no chances at the station, but I fear we're up against it once more, friend Watson. And that was part 2 of chapter 5. Part 3 is on Sunday. I shall see you then. And until then, have a great weekend, have a great Friday, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye for now.